I am sure that more than one of you, as true fans of this saga, have also experienced that strange situation of coming across an awesome and incredible legendary creature, only to find out that it was not only a legendary Pokemon, but that it was really a demon, and that you will never again accept a gift from your dear aunt who likes to shop online. No jokes. Today's video is about two of my favorite things in the world, napping without knowing what day or month you're in, and the other thing, Pokemon stories. Anecdotes and legendary Pokemon. In the Pokemon world, there are hundreds of creatures that either by their history, by their design, or by how really complicated they are to find, that I'm sure that at some point in our sweet childhood, or even not so long ago, we came to be practically sure that we were in front of a legendary Pokemon. Legendary Pokemon. First, I want to emphasize that in this video we will not focus on Pokemon that should be legendary, because once in an episode of the anime came out on a wall, I don't mean that. I'd rather tell you a rather funny list of anecdotes from my childhood where little Ro ended up being disappointed to see that all those amazing and spectacular Pokemon he found were not as special as he had thought. So I would love for you to be part of this video too, and tell me in the comments below which Pokemon did you mistake for legendary creatures? Well, the first anecdote that I want to let you know has to do with my place of origin in this wonderful saga. In case you don't know, Johto was the origin of my channel, and an adventure that really helps me to make videos and videos related to anecdotes. When I found my first wild Raikou, I was so scared that I turned off my console. What the hell was I thinking? In addition, one of the anecdotes that I am most fond of in Johto was spending more than 3 days in Ice Path trying to figure out how to get out. I still have nightmares about that cold place. Speaking about the first Pokemon, before facing the Dragon-type leader, I decided to explore Route 45. I came across a freaking steel bird. I mean, goddamn, at that time I was a real anime fan, and I especially loved Lugia and Zapdos. That's why seeing a legendary bird made of steel that I had never seen before was an incredible moment. For a long time I thought Mori was a legendary Pokemon, something that, as you may know, is false. The funny thing about all of this is that in my childhood I usually never had not even a single Pokeball in my item bag, so after defeating the Mori I thought it was never going to appear again. After telling all this to a group of friends, none of them believed me since they didn't know Mori either. So after I bought Pokeballs and went back to look for it again, it appeared again, and then another one. It appeared again, and then another one, and another one. And now at Digimon. So at that moment I understood that Mori was a more common Pokemon than I thought. Interestingly, in this second generation, there would also be a Pokemon that confused me, making me think it was legendary. Let me remind you again that I was a big fan of the anime, where the adorable little Togepi possesses powers equivalent to any Egyptian god. And actually the case of Togepi is one of my favorites, because even Professor Birch makes reference to the fact that he is not from this second generation, since he is an egg from beyond, from a place far, far away. My group of friends and I came to the conclusion that Togepi was a legendary Pokemon, which wasn't true. When Togepi hatched from the egg, and we saw that it was a little baby that would play the lottery with the metronome move, we understood that we were wrong. The most curious thing about this story is that in the third generation, after seeing Latios and Latias with those Togepi symbols in their design, Pokemon theories were reborn. The moment when everybody thought that Togepi really was the son of Latios and Latias. All this idea didn't last for long after I found out that these Pokemon were brothers, but my disappointment with Togepi was real. With the following protagonist, I have to blame the Pokemon anime for everything, more specifically the opening of Pokemon Advance's battle. I'm sure if any of you are my age or were born in the 90s, you love all the Pokemon anime openings. But all of these openings kept their secrets, as it happened to me with Lucario. As a child, listening to this opening was the happiest moment of my childhood. As it had already happened in other seasons of the anime, Pokemon started to do very strange things. That Pikachu with Kyogre and Gruden's symbols and other weird experiments, which resulted in a new masked character. So this ended with the early presentation of Lucario, a Pokemon ahead of its generation. And obviously, when I was a kid, I thought it was a legendary Pokemon. Thanks to Riley giving us an egg of his baby Riolu, I didn't understand that Lucario really is a very common Pokemon. Although my Pokemon adventures were not over yet, a new disappointment was coming. Reaching the 5th generation, where after traversing the desert, investigating what seemed like a legendary place, I encountered Volcarona. A really impressive creature that at the time I was sure it was a legendary Pokemon. Doesn't it make sense? Hiding in the desert, legendary level, and legendary Pokemon event, what is it? Indeed, another mistake from my childhood. Although I have to admit that I eventually forgave Volcarona, and it has become one of my favorite bug-type Pokemon nowadays. Besides adoring its two paradox forms, I actually prefer Volcarona as a normal Pokemon after all. But why this non-legendary Pokemon bug and fire type was underground in the ruins of the castle, in the middle of the desert? I have a theory that Volcarona is a much more important Pokemon than it seems. Perhaps it caused problems in ancient times and was locked up in these ruins to avoid its power. Or maybe Volcarona is a guardian Pokemon that deserved to be a legendary creature. It could be a very interesting idea for a future video. What do you think? Getting into the final part of the video, I want to make an honorable mention to a different Pokemon that, for one reason or another, I also had the feeling that I was in front of a legendary Pokemon. Okay guys, hear me out on this one. Absol is known as the disaster Pokemon, and one of its physical features is red eyes. It literally has the power to predict catastrophes. In one of the openings, Absol appeared surrounded by legendary Pokemons, and that again because of how difficult it was to find it, and its great prominence in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. As a child, I always had the feeling that Absol's story had many more things behind it than it seemed. And that thanks to his new form, Mega Absol getting angel wings and that curious power, maybe he could have been legendary? It's the rare case of Unown, which today surprises me that we don't know much more about its true power. Their relationship with Arceus and Entei made me think that these creatures were much more interesting. But for me at least, it will be a legendary Pokemon helper. Rotom is another perfect example, which until relatively recently I thought was a singular Pokemon. A little plasma ghost Pokemon with the power to possess household appliances and other electronics, with each thing Rotom possessing giving a new secondary type. I love it. Creature has an event of its own and has a legend of its own, although it certainly isn't telling how it's the reason a mansion burned down and people died, so let's forget the latter. Be that as it may, Rotom was a fascinating and unique Pokemon, so inside my heart it's always going to be legendary, for better or worse. Although as the best example to finish this video, let me tell you about what for me is a legendary Pokemon. To this day even, that for the rest of the mortals who do not understand how difficult it is to find Spiritomb is still a normal and ordinary Pokemon. The story, concept, design and method of obtaining Spiritomb. What a gem. Spiritomb was born from one of the 4 most important classic novels of Chinese literature, where it is told that 108 outlaws did real atrocities and tried to break all the laws to end up in prison, and that the number 108 in the Pokédex, linked to the 108 spirits and 108 outlaws in the story, would also fit perfectly with the 108 points based on both defenses. 108 being a sacred number in many Eastern religions. For this reason, the immense power of Spiritomb, I have always thought it might be worthy of the word legendary. In Pokemon Legend Arceus, Spiritomb also had its own event, proving once again the importance of this creature. Or maybe the simple fact of being one of the best in its own generation until the appearance of the fairy type would be enough to name Spiritomb as a legendary Pokemon. Now, it's time for you to tell your own stories that made you think a Pokemon could be legendary when actually it's not. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss our future Pokemon videos, and until next time, I'll see all of you later.